Good afternoon. So I'm hoping you guys all had a lovely lunch. I haven't had mine yet, so please bear with me. I'm just going to try and merge two talks, which is great because I only finished them about 30 seconds ago, so it was really easy to just cut out loads and put them together. But I had hoped to give a sort of breakdown of the African bioacoustics community, which we're all part of, so that you guys could get a feel for where we're at with it, and perhaps we can brainstorm over the next couple of days about where we're going with it. That would be very helpful, I think. And particularly if we've got members of the audience here or people online who would like to become more involved, then that would be absolutely amazing. In addition to that, I just wanted to have this afternoon session to really pull together the citizen science component, the sound library component, and how that sort of through a long chain of events gets to, the sexy science, the machine learning component, and the artificial intelligence component. And as I think was mentioned earlier in the plenary, we all can fall along that continuum somewhere and contribute, I think, to better, more efficient analysis of these large data sets. But it doesn't mean you have to just be the person at the end with your CNNs and so on. You can also be on the other end collecting the data, and that's kind of where we find ourselves at the moment. Okie dokes. So the African Bioacoustics Community, or ABC as I'll call it, was established in 2018. So we're now in about the 8th year. And as you hopefully know, it was a networking forum for people working on all aspects of bioacoustics research in Africa. That doesn't mean that if you're not working in Africa, you can't be involved. Of course you can. But the reason for setting it up as such was because we felt quite strongly that there was different pockets of researchers working across the continent, and we felt there was a need to have a platform where those pockets could communicate together, to show their research, and so on. So our core values are representation, inclusivity, and diversity, knowledge transfer and retention within the continent, and the removal and reduction of financial barriers to learning, to promote engagement in the field of bioacoustic sciences, and then also the environmental sustainability component. So as I said earlier in the week, when you are devising your own conferences and so on, you can have a little bit more say in the footprint that they leave behind. So I'm really grateful that we have everybody here in the room and online. This is our 4th conference. So the first one we had at University of Cape Town, and there we had around 112 people in person. This was before COVID, so before the sort of advent of online or hybrid conferencing. In 2020, we were physically based at the University of Stellenbosch. That did something funky. I didn't do that. And so we were physically based at the University of Stellenbosch, where we hosted the online component, but obviously during COVID, everybody was tuning in online. That actually gave us a huge audience for the conference. I think there was a lot of people who tuned in there and were engaged during a time when everybody was quite stressed. The last conference, which many of you were at, was in 2022 at Kruger National Park. And again, we had about 100 participants there, sort of off the back of COVID. We wanted to have an event that meant that those people who were going to turn up in person really, it made it worth their while. So they also got a great experience at Kruger on the back of that. But also because people were still very conscious about mixing and socially mixing and so on, having a space where it wasn't like half the crew are going to go out night clubbing with the rest of the city or whatever, and then coming back and spreading COVID. So we did want to be a little bit more exclusive during that conference. I know conferences are great places to socialize. Okay, and now here we are. We're at the Breakwater Lodge. We're hybrid. I think it's working well as a hybrid event. I hope you agree. We obviously want to get your feedback on that, both in person and online. And we've made it open up then a little bit more to 160 participants, so around 95 in person and the remainder online. And then, of course, those people who maybe are in person one day can be streaming the next day or vice versa. And I think, that also reduces some of the costs. For example, in the last week, just coming up to the conference, we did have a sort of push in people who wanted to attend in person, and that would have been great, but we don't have the sponsorship capabilities to get those people here in person, unfortunately. But it did mean we could at least offer inclusion in the conference by online sponsorships. So in terms of the sponsorship component, this year we had around 15 people in person registered through sponsorships, and then we had up to 40 people online who could apply for waived registrations. Now, of course, it would be really great to be able to fund people exclusively to fly from different countries, and particularly those on the continent. It is just restrictively expensive for us to raise the funds to then fly people here. So that's one of the components that perhaps we can keep in mind is, of course, it would be great to be able to provide those full sponsorship opportunities for people who really want to come in person, and there is a real benefit to that. It's just that we haven't had the capacity to raise that much funding to make that be a realization. Okie dokes. In the interim, so I usually say that it takes around a year to plan this conference. So you could plan it and take 2 years, and I think for the next one we probably will take a bit longer. But in general, because we're a committee who are mostly volunteering our time, we do try and sort of ring fence that, because as soon as you start on the conference bandwagon, you don't get off it again until Saturday morning, right? So with that in mind, we try and sort of ring fence it just a bit, and then make sure that in the lead up to the conference, then that's when we really put our effort in. So from that perspective, what do we do in the other time? Well, we have run some workshops, both in Cape Town and in the Kruger National Park. And again, in terms of lowering sort of financial barriers to inclusion, those have been free to attend. We did have a real push for people to attend online as well. We haven't made that a realization as of yet, but we have tried to put the information that came from those workshops out onto our YouTube channel so that people can experience those talks and learning opportunities at a later date. In general, we want to provide a place where postgraduates and yourselves in the room can improve the research that you're undertaking, to learn from one another. Within CSearch and ABC, we also provide project supervision and some mentoring as well. So hopefully increasing the number of students who are undertaking bioacoustics study here. And then as well, we have the sort of standard social media platforms. I feel like I'm too old now to get involved with it. My team tell me off when I try and meddle in social media. So over there, the social media team, we're on the Twitter, I think. No, it's not even called Twitter anymore. The Facebook, Instagram, and those other things, LinkedIn, I think. And then the listserv, which I'm just going to talk about. We do have some really great feedback about the listserv, and I have to say that this really is Erin's baby. And so in between doing her PhD, she is compiling the listserv twice a month. We followed a similar sort of outline as the MARMAM listserv, which is a marine mammal one, but we just do the listserv twice per week. So if you're not, twice per month. If you're not on it, please do join. It does have information about recent publications. We also put there if there's training opportunities, funding opportunities, and so on. And we do get very good feedback on that, and we do think it's a really worthwhile output. And as you can see, the number of people who have signed up to the listserv has increased over the last few years. We'd obviously expect that everybody in this room will now be part of that listserv, and if you're not, already, then you'll sign up. And just in terms of the breakdown of who does register for the listserv, it's around 40% from African countries, and around 60% from the rest of the globe. And that's great. That means that we're getting a real mix, and we obviously have a lot of people who aren't working in Africa but are interested in the research that is put out from here. It's called the African Bioacoustics Communiqué. If you want to go and look at the previous versions of it, you can. So once you've signed up, you can also go back in history and see what else has come out there. One of the outputs that Froen, who's in the room, orchestrated, which I think is really important, is a review of bioacoustics research in Africa. If you haven't read this paper, please do so. Because he himself and Fanny and myself and a few others, we scratched around and got us comprehensive as we could information on the bioacoustic studies that have been conducted. And over 700, I believe, publications have come out. And obviously, as you can see, there's a huge increase over the recent years, which reflects what we see globally in terms of bioacoustics. But yeah, we're sort of increasing our outputs in this field, and I think that when we update this, which I hope we will do in the coming years, that we'll see that that's increased even more. Breaking down in terms of the different disciplines, disciplines in terms of terrestrial, marine, and freshwater, we can see that there's a real bias on the behavioral component. So a lot of the work has been focused on certain species or taxon, and then within that, say, animal behavior, particularly thinking about some of the ape work, looking at cultural transmission and so on, or looking at some of the specific bird species that have then formed the PhD work of certain researchers. What this does do is also help to highlight where there are gaps. And for me, where I think there's some really important gaps, obviously we work in the marine sector, so we're a little bit more biased there, but I do think that the fish, the sort of work on fish is particularly under represented, and then also the human impact. And so when we're devising the conference as well, we can try to plug some of these gaps and place talks which will hopefully initiate more research in those particular fields. Okie dokes. In terms of the sound library component, I feel like this is out of... No? I've lost the slide, never mind. I'll go back. Okay, so in terms of some of the work that we've been doing, which will actually be represented later on in the afternoon by Natalia, we have been working towards generating a sound library that represents better some of the species that we come across. And for us, this was also a sort of transition from more of the marine work into the terrestrial realm as well, which is a really good training opportunity as well. So rather than sending students out and putting them on boats studying humpback whale song straight away, where obviously you're also quite likely to get seasick and your chances of finding a humpback whale might be quite limited, we are using some of the terrestrial data collection time as an opportunity to increase training in terms of acoustic data collection and also analyses. And so I'm not going to talk too much about this because, as I said, Nachi will do. But we did find that with the increase in citizen science apps, such as, say, Merlin, for example, which is a birding app, we were finding that some of these apps weren't working particularly well for us when we were wandering around Cape Town, for example. And one of the reasons is that the training data isn't really there for the apps to work effectively. So we've heard a lot about BirdNet, and that's great because you can train that yourself. But if we're talking more generally about citizen science data collection, then we do want to have apps which can detect the majority of species that we would expect to find. And it may have changed recently, but when I last checked in, it was around 16% of the species for birds were available for South Africa to make the Merlin app work. So effectively, most of the species that we encounter, it's not going to be able to detect. And this is because it's based on sound library data that has been collected predominantly in North America and Europe and so on. So how can we fill that gap? Well, we can go out and do the really fun bit. So we can go out and do the data collection, and we just maybe need to know a little bit about how to do that and how to organize that. And sort of as one of the African bioacoustics sort of outputs, we've sat and given that quite a lot of thought, and have come to a space now where we feel like we are collecting decent sound library data, which is archived in an organized fashion, which has that metadata associated with it, and which would then be available for students to use for machine learning applications and to contribute to long-term archives of acoustic data on multiple species. As we do that as well, it then helps to sort of come full circle. We can encourage people to collect this sort of data by sort of showcasing that information, those recordings and so on. And so one of the components that, again, we'll come back to later in this afternoon session is about public engagement with bioacoustics research and outreach, and then also, approaching, listening to the environment, listening to life in a different way, using the creative arts and so on. So we're going to be showcasing some of that this afternoon. So people get excited. Hopefully we can then direct them into ways in which maybe the data collection is a little bit more robust, and that data is archived, and then hopefully over time that will then be integrated into these machine learning and conservation applications. Okay, so from our side, in terms of the sound libraries, we focused on three groups. So we work on marine mammals, so that's kind of our bread and butter. So we feel like we've got quite a lot of data on marine mammals around particularly Southern Africa. I've mentioned the birds work that we've been focusing on, and so we've been going to different field sites and with the equipment that we showed last night, collecting high quality verified video and sound data from as many species as we can. That's why it's really fun, because you can just record everything, which we love doing. And then I really do think that the fish, marine fish, but also freshwater fish, are also incredibly underrepresented. And Isla's going to talk about that, and also Audrey, I think, later in the afternoon. So I won't talk too much about this, just, the camera setup we showed yesterday. I would say that when we are out doing our data collection, we can probably get about 30 encounters of various bird species within a session as a maximum, because then you have to go and sort of download it, rename it, and all of that stuff as well. So, and we are trying to get as much variation in terms of the animals, the species, the individuals, the locations, the background noise, and all of that variability that you would want, because you don't really want to be training these machine learnings on just the perfect data. You also want to get some of the crappy data in there as well to really test it. Okay, so as we're doing this, I said we're trying to get people involved as well. So we do put some of our clips online, and I'd love to do more of that. Each of these little clips, if you go and have a look on our YouTube, it's just 30 seconds or so. But it just, what we're trying to do is show the spectrograms in addition to the recording setup. So we just provide a little bit more information about how that data was collected. And then the Listening for Life project, Claire is here, I think, already. She's going to be introducing that, but basically using creative approaches to promote an understanding and appreciation of the natural world through sound. So she will show you some of these beautiful murals that have been implemented in the Kruger National Park. And just going forward, in terms of Listening for Life, We are hoping to grow this recording network, do more training work. It would be great to sort of work with some of the larger citizen science apps like the iNaturalist to integrate more sound recording into that. I mentioned earlier this bioacoustics big year. I would love to get this off the ground, and I think it would be really beneficial. So please come and talk to me about that if you have ideas. And in terms of the African bioacoustics community, where I think we really need to talk is about financial sustainability in terms of going forward. We were so lucky we got a year's funding from the Richard Lansbury Foundation, and that's really made a huge difference in terms of being able to do some of these additional pieces of work, not just the conference, but also training and so on. And we do need to now be looking for additional funding going forward. So if anyone's got any ideas or, I don't know, big donors who are their best friends, please let us know. It would be great as well. We have increased the representation from different countries as part of the ABC committee, but I think actually we could maybe aim to get an in-country representative from each of the countries. I mean, it's a big aim, but I think it would be really, really awesome to do, and then that means that those people would then sort of be the point of contact within a country and then also promote bioacoustics research there. I've talked about the sound library. African Bioacoustics Community Conference 2026. I would love to do it out of South Africa. So again, if you can come to me or chat and we can think about how that could happen, which country it would work well in, then I'm all ears, because that would be really amazing. We've been fairly lazy, I would say, in terms of having it in South Africa for the last 4 iterations. Logistically, that was the easiest way to approach it, but obviously it would be wonderful to take another country and have a team there who could facilitate that. Hopefully we will be doing a larger conference as well in 2027 that's bioacoustics themed, but I'm not sure about that yet. But basically we are looking to 2026 and 2028, so please do come chat about that if you're interested in helping and being part of that. Okay, I think that was all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tess, for that interesting talk. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions.